December 20th, 1943. The sky over Bremen is iron. The cold cuts through leather and steel alike. A B-17 bomber, tail number 23691, limps through the air at 8,000 feet. Its fuselage is shredded. Its engines cough black smoke. Blood freezes on the aluminum skin. The chronicler watches. They thought they would make it home. They were wrong. The Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress they called Ye Olde Pub is dying. First Lieutenant Charles Brown sits in the pilot's seat, hands trembling on the yoke. He is 21 years old. His face is pale. His oxygen mask hangs loose. The windscreen before him is spider-webbed with cracks. Through those cracks, he sees nothing but winter sky and the distant coastline of the North Sea. Behind him, the bomber is a slaughterhouse. The ball turret gunner, Staff Sergeant Samuel Blackford, is dead. His body hangs in the turret, frozen in place. The tail gunner, Sergeant Hugh Eckenrode, is unconscious, bleeding from shrapnel wounds in his leg and shoulder. The top turret gunner has stopped responding on the intercom. The waist gunners are trying to keep the wounded alive with sulfa powder and morphine, but their hands shake too much to tie the bandages tight. The bomber has no right to be in the air. Of its 4 Wright Cyclone engines, only 2 are running. The number 3 engine is feathered, its propeller still. The number 4 engine is missing, entirely blown apart by a 20mm cannon shell from a Focke-Wulf 190. The vertical stabilizer is gone. The rudder is shredded. The left wing has a hole the size of a dining table. Over 200 bullet holes puncture the aluminum skin. Some are small, some are large enough to put a fist through. And yet, somehow, Ye Olde Pub flies. Brown does not know how. He does not ask. He only grips the yoke and keeps the nose pointed west, toward England, toward home, toward life. The aircraft loses altitude, 100 feet per minute. Then, 200. The North Sea waits below, gray and merciless. If the engines fail now, they will ditch in water so cold a man dies in 3 minutes. The crew knows this. They do not speak of it. They only watch the altimeter spin downward and pray. Brown's vision blurs. He has lost too much blood from a head wound. The world tilts. The horizon spins. He blinks hard, trying to focus. His co-pilot is slumped in his seat, semi-conscious. The navigator is dead. The bombardier is trying to keep pressure on a chest wound that will not stop bleeding. They are alone. No fighter escort. No friendly aircraft in sight. Just gray sky and gray sea and the thin scream of failing engines. And then, through the cracked windscreen, Brown sees something that makes his heart stop. A fighter, black crosses on its wings, yellow nose, coming fast from the starboard side. The Luftwaffe has found them. Brown does not reach for the controls. He cannot. He is too weak. He simply watches the fighter approach. He thinks, this is how we die. But what happens next defies everything he knows about war. Oberleutnant Franz Stigler climbs into the cockpit of his Messerschmitt Beef 109 at Jever Airfield. He is 27 years old. He has flown 280 combat missions. He has 22 confirmed kills. His Gustav 6 fighter is painted with a yellow nose and white chevrons. On the fuselage, beneath the cockpit, is a small black tulip, his personal insignia. He has been ordered to intercept. The radar stations along the coast have detected a lone bomber, flying low and slow, heading northwest. It is crippled. It is defenseless. It is an easy kill. Stigler does not feel eager. He has already flown 2 sorties today. He has already shot down 2 B-17 seconds. His fuel is low. His ammunition is nearly spent. He has enough rounds for perhaps one more pass, one more burst, one more kill that would bring him to 23 victories. 1 kill away from the Knight's Cross. 1 kill away from a medal that men die trying to earn. But his commanding officer, Major Gustav Rodel, has given him a direct order. Go up. Finish it. Stigler does not argue. He straps in. He throttles up. The Daimler-Benz 605 engine roars. The propeller blurs. The fighter rolls forward, lifts, and climbs into the gray December sky. He flies northwest. At 300 kilometers per hour, eyes scanning the horizon, his gloved hand rests on the control stick, his thumb hovers near the cannon trigger, and then he sees it. At first, Stigler does not believe what he sees. The B-17 is flying at less than 200 kilometers per hour. Its landing gear is partially extended, stuck halfway down. Its tail is nearly gone. Its right horizontal stabilizer is shredded. Black smoke trails from the inboard engines. The entire aircraft is riddled with bullet holes. The aluminum skin is torn in places. Pieces of metal flap in the wind. Stigler throttles back. He slows. He pulls alongside. He can see inside. Through the torn fuselage, he sees men. Wounded men. One is slumped over a machine gun, not moving. Another is lying on the floor, wrapped in blankets soaked dark with blood. A third is trying to stanch bleeding with a torn piece of parachute silk. The aluminum skin is painted red from the inside. The entire midsection of the bomber is exposed to the elements. The men inside are not wearing oxygen masks. They are not wearing winter gear. They are freezing. Stigler pulls closer, so close he can see the pilot's face. Charles Brown turns his head. He sees the Messerschmitt. He sees the black crosses on its wings. He sees the cannon ports in the nose. He sees the pilot looking back at him. Brown does not reach for the controls. He does not bank away. He cannot. He is too weak. He simply stares. His eyes are hollow. His face is gray, and Stigler stares back. For a moment, neither man moves. The only sound is the drone of engines. 2 engines on the bomber, 1 engine on the fighter. The wind howls through the gaps in the fuselage. Stigler's thumb hovers over the cannon trigger. 1 press, 2 seconds of fire, 20 rounds. The bomber would disintegrate. His 23rd kill, perhaps a medal, perhaps a promotion, perhaps his name in the newspapers, but he does not press. He thinks of something his commanding officer once told him years ago when Stigler was still a young pilot in North Africa. Rodel had grabbed him by the collar after Stigler had expressed admiration for a pilot who had strafed British soldiers in parachutes. Rodel's face had been white with rage. He had said, "If I ever see you shooting at a man in a parachute, I will shoot you down myself. Honor is the only thing that separates us from animals." Stigler looks at the shredded bomber, at the wounded men inside, at the pilot who is barely conscious, at the blood streaking the fuselage, at the tail gunner slumped in his position, his guns pointing at nothing. He thinks, this is not a bomber. This is a parachute. These men are already dead. They just do not know it yet. If he fires now, he is not shooting down an enemy. He is executing the wounded. He pulls back on the stick. He drops away. He circles wide. His fuel gauge reads 20 minutes. His ammunition counter reads 47 rounds. Enough to kill. Enough to obey orders. Enough to earn his medal. And then he makes a decision that will haunt him for the rest of his life. He decides to disobey. Stigler pulls up alongside Ye Olde Pub again. This time, he does not aim. He does not arm his guns. He simply flies, wing to wing, 50 meters apart. Brown sees him. The waist gunners see him. They do not fire. They cannot fire. Their guns are jammed. Their ammunition is spent. They are defenseless. One gunner raises his hand slowly, preparing to surrender. Stigler waves, not a salute, not a threat, just a wave. Like 2 pilots passing on a training flight, Brown does not understand. He blinks. His head throbs. He thinks he is hallucinating. He has lost too much blood. The cold has gotten into his skull. He is seeing things that are not real. Stigler waves again. He gestures toward the ground. He points down with his whole arm. He mouths words that Brown cannot hear over the engine noise. Land, land in Germany. You will be prisoners, but you will live. Brown shakes his head. Slow, deliberate. Each movement sends pain through his skull. He points west, toward the sea, toward England. Stigler understands. He thinks, if you fly over the flak batteries, they will shoot you down. If you fly over the coastal guns, they will kill you. You will not make it. He decides, then I will make sure they do not. He moves closer. Closer than any escort fighter has ever flown to an enemy bomber. His wingtip is less than 10 meters from Brown's cockpit. So close that Brown can see the rivets on the Messerschmitt's fuselage. So close that Brown can see Stigler's face through the canopy. A young face, tired eyes, a thin mouth set in a line. Stigler throttles back. He matches speed. He flies in formation. The bomber shudders. The engines cough. The airframe groans. But it stays in the air. And together, they fly toward the coast. Below, the German coastline appears. Wilhelmshaven. The flak batteries are there. 48 88mm guns. Radar guided. Accurate to within 10 meters at 8,000 feet. They have shot down 312 Allied aircraft in the past year. Their crews are experienced. They do not miss. And the flak batteries see him. From the ground, the German gunners see a lone Messerschmitt flying alongside a crippled American bomber. They see the black crosses. They see the yellow nose. They track the formation through their optical sights. The range is perfect. The altitude is perfect. One command, and 48 guns will fire. The bomber will be shredded. The battery commander, Hauptmann Wilhelm Krebs, picks up the telephone. He calls the operations center. He asks, "Do we have a capture mission in progress?" The operations officer checks the log. He flips through pages. He finds nothing. He says, "Negative. No missions logged." Krebs looks through his binoculars again. He sees the Messerschmitt. He sees the bomber. He sees the blood streaking the fuselage. He sees the torn metal. He sees the missing tail. He thinks, that fighter is escorting a prize. That bomber has been captured. That pilot is bringing it in. He gives the order, hold fire, do not engage. The guns do not fire. Stigler flies Ye Olde Pub through the entire coastal defense zone. Past Wilhelmshaven, past Cuxhaven, past Bremerhaven, past the last gun emplacements on the Frisian Islands. 6 minutes of flight. 6 minutes where a single word from the ground could have killed them both. 6 minutes where every flak battery commander made the same assumption. They see the Messerschmitt. They hold fire. And then, over the North Sea, Stigler pulls away. He banks right. He gains altitude. He looks back one last time. Brown is still flying, still heading west. The bomber is still in the air, still losing altitude. But it is over water now. Over international airspace, beyond the reach of German guns. Stigler salutes, a formal salute. Hand to forehead. The way a pilot salutes a superior officer, the way a soldier salutes a man he respects. Brown, barely conscious, raises his hand. A weak gesture, a trembling nod. He does not have the strength for more. Stigler banks hard to the left. He opens the throttle. The Daimler-Benz engine screams. He climbs into the clouds and disappears. His fuel gauge reads 7 minutes. He flies back to Jever at maximum speed. He lands with less than 2 liters in his tanks. The engine sputters as he taxis to the hangar. Ground crew rush forward. They ask him about his sortie. He climbs out. He says nothing. He walks to the operations shack. He fills out no report. He claims no kill. He tells no one what he has done. He goes to his bunk. He lies down. He stares at the ceiling. He does not sleep. He thinks, I have disobeyed orders. I have committed treason. I have let the enemy escape. If anyone finds out, I will be shot. But he also thinks, I have not murdered helpless men. I have not become the thing I despise. He never tells anyone, not his squadron mates, not his commanding officer, not his wife. Years later, when the war is over, and he emigrates to Canada and starts a new life. Never. For 46 years, he carries the secret alone. Charles Brown lands Ye Olde Pub at Seething Airfield in England 2 hours later. The bomber is so damaged that ground crews stand in silence when they see it. The tail is gone, the fuselage is shredded, the landing gear collapses on touchdown. The aircraft slides 300 meters on its belly before it stops. Metal screams, sparks fly, the right wing crumples. The ground crews rush forward with fire extinguishers. They expect flames. They expect an explosion. But the engines are silent. The fuel tanks are empty. The aircraft has given everything. Brown is pulled from the cockpit. He collapses into the arms of a medic. He has lost 2 pints of blood. He has a concussion. He has frostbite in both hands. He cannot feel his fingers. He cannot stand. The tail gunner survives. He is carried out on a stretcher. His leg will heal in 6 months. The ball turret gunner is dead. He is buried 3 days later in a military cemetery near Cambridge. He is 19 years old. 5 other crew members recover. They are sent back to their units within weeks. Some fly again, some do not. Brown writes a report. He sits in the intelligence office with a cup of coffee he cannot drink because his hands shake too much. He describes the mission. He describes the flak over Bremen. He describes the fighter attack. He describes the damage. And then he describes the German fighter. He describes the escort. He describes the salute. The intelligence officers look at each other. One of them writes notes. One of them frowns. They do not believe him. They tell him he was disoriented. They tell him he lost too much blood. They tell him the German fighter was probably trying to finish him off, but ran out of ammunition. They tell him to forget it. They tell him not to include it in his official report. Brown does not argue, but he does not forget. He returns to duty. He flies 8 more missions. He survives the war. He goes home to West Virginia. He becomes a civil servant for the Department of State. He marries. He has a son. He lives a quiet life. But at night, sometimes, he dreams. He dreams of a yellow-nosed fighter flying alongside him. He dreams of a face in the cockpit. A young face. Tired eyes. A salute. He dreams of a man who let him live. And he wonders, who was he? What was his name? Why did he do it? He does not know. Not for 46 years. In 1990, Charles Brown is 67 years old. He lives in Miami, Florida. He is retired. He has a wife, a son, a quiet life. He plays golf. He reads books. He watches the news. But he has not forgotten. One afternoon in January, he sits at his typewriter, an old manual typewriter he bought in 1952. He feeds a sheet of paper into the roller. He types slowly, with 2 fingers. He writes a letter. He addresses it to a Combat Pilots Association newsletter, a small publication with a circulation of perhaps 5,000. Most of the readers are old men like him, men who flew in the war, men who remember. He describes the encounter. He describes the date, the location, the yellow-nosed fighter, the escort through the flak zone, the salute. He writes, "I have carried this memory for 46 years. I do not know the name of the German pilot who saved my life. I do not know if he survived the war. But if he did, I would like to find him. I would like to thank him. I would like to shake his hand." He signs the letter. He mails it. And then he waits. The letter is published in the January issue. It is read by thousands of veterans. Most ignore it. Some think it is fabricated. A few write back with guesses. Names of German pilots who flew Messerschmitts. Names of men who are long dead. None are correct. Brown receives 17 letters. None of them are from the man he is looking for. He begins to think he will never find him. But one man reads the letter and stops breathing. Franz Stigler is 74 years old. He lives in Vancouver, Canada. He emigrated after the war. He became a commercial pilot. He flew for Lufthansa for 20 years. He retired in 1978. He has a wife. He has children. He has grandchildren. He never spoke of the war. He never told his wife what he did. He never told his children about the missions he flew. He never told anyone about the day he escorted an American bomber through the coastal flak zone. But he reads Brown's letter, and he knows. He reads the description of the B-17, the shredded tail, the missing engine, the blood on the fuselage, the date, December 20th, 1943, the location, over Wilhelmshaven, the salute, He reads it 3 times. His hands shake. His wife asks him what is wrong. He does not answer. He walks to his desk. He picks up a pen. He writes back. I was the pilot of the Messerschmitt. It was me. I remember everything. He gives his address, his telephone number. He signs his name. He mails the letter. And then he waits. 3 weeks later, the telephone rings. They meet in a hotel in Seattle in June 1990. Brown flies in from Miami. Stigler drives down from Vancouver. They arrive on the same day. They check into rooms on the same floor. They agree to meet in the lobby at 10:00 hours. Brown arrives first. He sits in a chair near the window. He wears a gray suit. He holds a manila envelope. Inside is a photograph of Olde Pub, a photograph taken in England in 1943. Before the mission, the bomber is intact. The crew stands in front of it, smiling. Stigler arrives at exactly 10:00 hours. He wears a blue blazer. He holds a manila envelope. Inside is a photograph of his Messerschmitt, a photograph taken at Jever in 1943. The fighter gleams in the sunlight. The black tulip on the fuselage is clearly visible. They see each other across the lobby. For a moment, neither man moves. Brown stands. Stigler walks toward him. They meet in the center of the lobby. They do not speak for a long time. Brown looks at Stigler. He sees an old man. Gray hair, pale blue eyes, thin hands, weathered skin. He thinks, this is the man who saved my life. Stigler looks at Brown. He sees an old man, weathered face, steady gaze, strong jaw. He thinks, this is the man I did not kill. Then Brown says, why didn't you shoot me down? Stigler looks at him. His voice is quiet, steady, accented but clear. He says, I could not. You were defenseless. You were already dead. If I had fired, it would not have been combat. It would have been murder. Brown says, but we were enemies. Stigler says, we were, but you were also men. Young men, wounded men, men who wanted to go home. Brown says, you risked your life. Stigler says, I did what was right. Honor is not about orders, it is about choice. They sit in silence. Then Brown stands. He walks around the table. He extends his hand. Stigler takes it. They embrace, and for the first time in 46 years, both men weep. For the next 18 years, Franz Stigler and Charles Brown are inseparable. They visit each other's homes. Stigler travels to Miami. Brown travels to Vancouver. They sit together in living rooms and on porches. They drink coffee. They tell stories. They laugh. They travel together to air shows and veteran events. They stand on stages and tell the story. To students, to historians, to journalists, to anyone who will listen. The audiences are always silent. They hear about the bomber, the blood, the missing engine, the shredded tail. They hear about the fighter, the yellow nose, the salute. They hear about honor, about choice, about what it means to be human in a war that tried to erase humanity. And they understand that this story is not about nations. It is not about ideology. It is not about victory or defeat. It is about two men who looked at each other in the sky and saw not enemies, but reflections. Stigler and Brown become brothers, not by blood, not by country, but by something deeper, by the moment they shared, by the choice Stigler made, by the life Brown lived because of it. They speak on the phone every week. They exchange letters. They celebrate birthdays together. They attend each other's family gatherings. In 2006, they co-author a book with writer Adam Makos. It is called A Higher Call. It tells their story. It becomes a bestseller. They are interviewed on television. They are invited to speak at military academies. Young pilots ask them questions. Old pilots salute them. And through it all, they remain humble. Stigler never claims to be a hero. He says, I only did what any man with honor would do. Brown never claims to be special. He says, I was lucky. I was saved by a man who remembered what it means to be human. In March 2008, Franz Stigler dies. He is 92 years old. He dies peacefully in his home in Vancouver. His wife is with him, his children are with him. Charles Brown is with him. Brown holds Stigler's hand. He says, "Thank you, my brother." Stigler opens his eyes one last time. He smiles. He says, "We will fly together again." 8 months later, Charles Brown dies. He is 87 years old. He dies in his home in Miami. His wife is with him. His son is with him. In his hand is a photograph of two old men standing together, smiling. One is Franz Stigler, one is Charles Brown. Brothers, they are buried 400 miles apart, Stigler in Vancouver, Brown in Miami, but their names are forever linked. On Brown's headstone, beneath his name and rank, is a line, "Saved by honor." On Stigler's headstone, beneath his name and rank, is a line, "He chose mercy." Their story is taught in schools. It is told in documentaries. It is studied in military ethics courses. It is referenced in speeches about humanity and war, because it is true, and because it is necessary. In a war where 6 million Jews were murdered, where cities were firebombed, where entire armies were swallowed by winter, where humanity itself seemed to collapse into ash and ruin. In that war, one man looked at another and chose not to kill. One man risked court-martial, risked execution, risked everything to save his enemy. And the question historians ask is, why? Why did Franz Stigler disobey orders? Why did he escort the bomber? Why did he risk his life? The answer is simple: because he remembered. He remembered what his commanding officer told him. Honor is the only thing that separates us from animals. He remembered what war had done to him, what it had done to his comrades, what it was doing to the world. He remembered that beneath the uniform, beneath the insignia, beneath the national anthem, there is something older, something deeper: humanity. And in that moment, flying alongside Ye Olde Pub, he chose to protect it. Not because it was easy, not because it was safe, not because anyone would ever know, but because it was right. The bomber is gone now, scrapped for metal in 1944. The fighter is gone too, destroyed in a bombing raid on Jever in 1945, but the story remains. It is told in classrooms, in museums, in books, in the still moments when old men sit and remember. It is told because it is true, and because it is a reminder. A reminder that even in the darkest moments of human history, there is light. Even in the machinery of war, there is mercy. Even in the face of orders and ideology and the relentless logic of violence, there is choice. Franz Stigler made that choice, and Charles Brown lived because of it. And the world is better because they both remembered, because they found each other, because they told their story, because they showed us that honor is not abstract. It is not a word in a manual. It is not a medal on a chest. It is a decision made in a moment by a man who looks into the eyes of another man and sees himself. Franz Stigler saw himself in Charles Brown. He saw a young man far from home, bleeding, dying, trying to survive, and he thought, this could be me. So he did not fire. He escorted, he protected, he saved. And 46 years later, when they finally met, they embraced. Not as victor and vanquished, not as German and American, not as former enemies, but as brothers. Two men who shared a moment in the sky, a moment that defined both their lives, a moment that reminds us all that humanity is not erased by war, it is tested. And sometimes, in the silence between the gunfire and the engine noise, it survives. The battlefield is silent now, but echoes remain, forgotten footsteps on frozen ground. You heard them today, and now you remember.